When was the last time you truly listened to yourself? Not the version of you shaped by expectations, not the version trying to avoid disappointing others, but the quiet voice inside that knows what you actually feel, what you actually need. For many people, that voice slowly becomes faint. Life fills with responsibilities, opinions, and pressure to be the person others expect. And without realizing it, we begin to live further and further away from our own center. Buddhist teachings remind us that losing connection with ourselves is one of the deepest sources of suffering. When we constantly ignore our inner truth, the mind becomes restless and exhausted. But something powerful begins to happen the moment you start returning to yourself. In this video, we will explore, through Buddhist wisdom, what truly happens when you finally choose yourself. We will look at how releasing the need for constant approval, setting healthy boundaries, and reconnecting with your inner voice can lead to deeper peace, clarity, and freedom in your life. 1. The quiet moment when you realize you have been leaving yourself behind. There is a moment that often arrives quietly, not with drama, not with a sudden announcement. It appears slowly, like dawn spreading across the horizon. You begin to notice a strange feeling inside you. Even when everything seems outwardly fine, your responsibilities are handled, your relationships appear stable, your life looks reasonable, you feel a quiet exhaustion, not just physical exhaustion, a deeper one. The exhaustion of constantly adjusting yourself to fit what others need. Perhaps you say yes when your heart wants to say no. Perhaps you silence your opinions to avoid conflict. Perhaps you continue habits, relationships, or expectations that no longer feel true to who you are. In Buddhism, suffering often arises when we live in contradiction with our inner truth. The Buddha taught that awareness is the first step toward liberation. And awareness sometimes begins with a simple realization: I have been leaving myself behind. This realization is not meant to create guilt. It is meant to create clarity. Many people learned early in life that love is conditional. They learned that approval comes from being useful, agreeable, or quiet. Over time, this conditioning becomes invisible. You stop questioning it. But one day, something within you gently asks, when was the last time I truly listened to myself? This question marks the beginning of change. Choosing yourself does not mean rejecting others. It means recognizing that your well-being also matters. Your peace also matters. Your voice also deserves space in the world. When this awareness begins to grow, a quiet shift takes place. You stop living entirely on autopilot. You begin to return to yourself, and that return is the beginning of freedom. 2. Why choosing yourself feels so uncomfortable. For many people, choosing themselves does not feel empowering at first. It feels uncomfortable, even frightening. This happens because most of us were taught, directly or indirectly, that prioritizing ourselves is selfish. From childhood, we hear messages about sacrifice, obedience, and putting others first. These teachings often come from love, but they can become deeply ingrained patterns. When you begin to change these patterns, your mind may resist. You might feel guilt when setting boundaries. You might feel anxiety when disappointing someone. You might wonder if you are becoming cold, distant, or unkind. But in Buddhist wisdom, intention matters more than appearance. Choosing yourself does not mean ignoring the needs of others. It means including your own needs within the circle of compassion. The Buddha often spoke about the importance of balance, the middle way. Neither complete self-denial nor complete self-indulgence leads to peace. Both extremes create suffering. When you begin choosing yourself wisely, you are simply restoring balance. Imagine a cup that has been pouring water into other cups for years. Eventually, that cup becomes empty, and an empty cup cannot nourish anyone. By caring for your own mind, your own energy, and your own well-being, you are not abandoning others. You are strengthening the foundation from which your kindness flows. At first, people around you may not understand this shift. They may be used to the older version of you, the one who always accommodated, always adjusted, always agreed. Change often unsettles expectations. But with time, something beautiful begins to happen. You start to feel lighter, more honest, more aligned with who you truly are. And from that place, your presence in the world becomes more genuine than it has ever been before. 3. The inner peace that begins when you stop seeking constant approval. For many people, life quietly becomes a search for approval. Not always in obvious ways. Sometimes it appears in small, subtle behaviors. You check whether people agree with you before trusting your own opinion. You adjust your words depending on who is listening. You feel relieved when someone praises you and strangely unsettled when they don't. Without realizing it, your emotional stability begins to depend on how others respond to you. In Buddhism, this pattern is closely related to attachment, the attachment to praise, validation, and recognition. The Buddha described praise and blame as two of the 8 worldly winds, forces that constantly push the human mind back and forth. When we depend on praise, our happiness becomes fragile, because praise is unpredictable. Some people will appreciate you. Some people will misunderstand you. Some people will project their own fears or expectations onto you. If your peace depends on their reactions, your mind will never fully rest. This is why choosing yourself becomes so powerful. It gently loosens your dependence on approval. Instead of constantly asking, "Do they like what I'm doing?" you begin asking a different question. Is this aligned with who I truly want to be? This shift may seem small, but its effects are profound. You begin to trust your inner compass. Your decisions become quieter, but more stable. You no longer feel the need to explain every choice or defend every action. The need to justify yourself slowly fades. In its place, something calmer emerges. Self-respect. Self-respect is not loud or arrogant. It does not require announcing itself. It simply means you recognize that your inner experience has value. When you trust your own intentions, the opinions of others lose their power to shake you. Criticism still appears in life, but it no longer defines you. You listen to feedback with curiosity instead of fear. If something is useful, you accept it. If it is not, you let it pass like a cloud moving through the sky. This is the beginning of emotional freedom. The Buddha often taught that true peace does not come from controlling the outside world. It comes from understanding the movements of the mind. And one of the most exhausting movements of the mind is the endless attempt to secure approval. When you release this struggle, your energy returns to you. You stop performing. You stop pretending. You begin living. The quiet miracle of choosing yourself is that life becomes simpler. Conversations feel more authentic. Decisions feel clearer. Even silence becomes comfortable. You no longer measure your worth through the reactions of others. Instead, you begin to experience something deeper, a quiet sense of enoughness. You are enough when you speak honestly. You are enough when you rest. You are enough when you follow the direction that feels true within your heart. This kind of peace cannot be given by others, and it cannot be taken away by them either. It grows slowly from the moment you stop asking the world for permission to be yourself. 4. How choosing yourself quietly transforms your relationships. One of the greatest fears people have when choosing themselves is this: what will happen to my relationships? Many people worry that if they stop constantly accommodating others, they will lose connection, approval, or love. This fear is understandable. For a long time, many relationships are built around familiar patterns. You may be known as the helpful one, the agreeable one, the one who never creates difficulty. These roles often become invisible agreements. Others expect you to behave a certain way, and you continue behaving that way to keep the peace. But when you begin choosing yourself, something slowly changes. You start setting small boundaries. You speak more honestly about your feelings. You stop automatically saying yes to everything. At first, this can feel uncomfortable, and sometimes the people around you may feel surprised by the change. This does not mean you are doing something wrong. It simply means the relationship is adjusting to a new level of honesty. In Buddhism, compassion is not the same as self-sacrifice. True compassion includes wisdom, and wisdom recognizes that relationships built on suppression eventually lead to resentment. When you constantly silence yourself, you may appear peaceful on the surface, but internally, tension begins to grow. Over time, that tension can turn into frustration, emotional distance, or quiet bitterness. Choosing yourself prevents this. By being honest earlier, you allow relationships to become more real. Some connections may deepen, others may naturally fade, and this is part of the natural flow of life. The Buddha often spoke about impermanence, the truth that all relationships evolve over time. Trying to freeze them into fixed roles only creates suffering. When you begin living more authentically, you invite others to meet the real version of you. Some people will welcome this with relief. They may feel safer being honest themselves. Others may struggle, especially if they were comfortable with the older dynamic. But over time, something beautiful begins to happen. Your relationships become clearer. You stop investing energy in connections that require you to shrink yourself. And you begin nurturing relationships where mutual respect exists. Instead of relationships based on obligation, you experience relationships based on presence. You listen more deeply. You speak more truthfully. You allow others to be themselves as well. This is where Buddhist wisdom becomes visible in everyday life. Compassion is no longer about constantly giving. It becomes about understanding your own limits, understanding the needs of others, and meeting each moment with honesty and care. When you choose yourself wisely, you do not become distant from people. You become more genuine with them, and genuine connection is far stronger than forced harmony. It does not require pretending. It does not require exhaustion. It simply requires two people willing to meet each other as they truly are. And when that happens, relationships stop feeling like responsibilities. They begin to feel like shared journeys. 5. The deep emotional freedom that comes when you stop living the role others gave you. At some point in life, many people begin to notice something unusual. They realize they are not only living a life, they are also living a role. Perhaps you became the responsible one in your family, the one who keeps everything together. Perhaps you became the peacemaker, the one who avoids conflict and keeps everyone comfortable. Perhaps you became the achiever, the one who must always succeed, always prove their worth. Or perhaps you became the quiet one, the one who learned that staying small was the safest way to belong. These roles often begin early in life. Sometimes they form in childhood, sometimes through relationships, expectations, or cultural pressure. Over time, they become so familiar that you stop noticing them. They begin to feel like your identity. But in Buddhist understanding, identity itself is something fluid. The Buddha taught the concept of anatta, or non-self, the idea that what we think of as a fixed self is actually a collection of habits, experiences, roles, and conditions constantly changing. This means something very important. Many of the roles you carry are not who you truly are. They are simply patterns that formed over time. And when you finally begin choosing yourself, these roles slowly begin to loosen their grip. At first, this can feel strange. Imagine wearing the same clothing every day for many years. Even if the clothing becomes uncomfortable, it feels familiar. Taking it off may feel unsettling at first. This is how it feels when you step outside the roles that once defined you. You might ask yourself, if I am not the one who always fixes everything, who am I? If I am not the one who constantly pleases others, who am I? These questions can feel uncertain, but they are also deeply liberating, because they open space for something new. For the first time, you begin responding to life not from obligation, but from awareness. You notice when you are about to say yes out of habit. You notice when you are about to apologize unnecessarily. You notice when you are about to carry emotional weight that does not belong to you. And in those moments, you pause. That pause is powerful. In Buddhism, awareness is like a light entering a dark room. Once the light appears, the room cannot return to complete darkness. When you see your patterns clearly, you gain the freedom to choose differently. You may start allowing others to solve their own problems instead of immediately rescuing them. You may begin expressing needs you once kept hidden. You may begin resting without feeling that you must constantly earn your worth through effort. These small shifts can create profound emotional freedom. For many years, you may have believed that your value came from how much you give, how much you tolerate, or how much you accomplish. But choosing yourself reveals a quieter truth. Your value does not come from performing a role. Your value comes from being alive, aware, and capable of kindness. When this realization settles into the heart, something softens. You stop constantly proving yourself. You stop carrying the invisible pressure to be perfect. You allow yourself to exist without constantly justifying your presence. This kind of freedom is deeply healing. It allows your nervous system to relax in ways it may not have relaxed before. You breathe more slowly. Your thoughts become less crowded. You begin noticing simple things again: the warmth of sunlight, the quiet rhythm of breathing, the calm that arises when you are not rushing to meet expectations. The Buddha taught that suffering often arises when we cling to fixed identities. We try to protect the image we have built about ourselves, even when that image is exhausting. But when you release that attachment, life becomes more fluid. You can be strong without always being the strong one. You can be supportive without always sacrificing yourself. You can be compassionate without losing your own center. Choosing yourself does not erase your kindness. it purifies it. Your actions become less driven by fear of rejection and more guided by genuine care. And something else begins to appear, something many people rarely experience: authenticity. You speak more honestly, you laugh more freely, you move through life without constantly monitoring how others might interpret you. This does not mean everyone will understand your changes. Some people may still prefer the version of you that always played the old role, but those who truly value you will begin to see something beautiful emerging. They will see someone who is calm, grounded, and genuine. Someone who is no longer acting a part, but living a life. In Buddhist wisdom, liberation does not always arrive through dramatic transformation. Sometimes it arrives quietly, through the simple decision to stop pretending, through the courage to step out of roles that no longer fit, through the gentle realization that your life was never meant to be a performance. And when you release the roles that once confined you, you discover something that was always waiting beneath them: your true presence, unforced, unburdened, and finally free. 6. The Buddhist secret to choosing yourself without losing compassion. One of the deepest misunderstandings about choosing yourself is the fear that it will make you selfish. Many people hesitate to prioritize their own well-being because they worry it will distance them from others. They imagine that choosing themselves means becoming indifferent, uncaring, or detached from the needs of those around them. But Buddhist wisdom teaches something very different. True self-respect and compassion are not opposites. In fact, they grow from the same root. The Buddha often spoke about compassion as something that must begin within the mind. If your mind is filled with resentment, exhaustion, or quiet frustration, your kindness toward others eventually becomes strained. It may still look generous from the outside, but inside there is tension. Over time, that tension can turn into burnout. This is why choosing yourself wisely is not selfishness. It is preparation. Imagine someone trying to guide others through a dark forest while carrying a lamp. If their lamp has no oil, the flame will eventually disappear. They cannot help anyone find their way. But when the lamp is cared for and protected, its light becomes steady. Choosing yourself is like caring for the lamp of your own mind. You protect your energy. You honor your limits. You make space for rest, reflection, and honesty. And because of this, your kindness becomes clearer rather than weaker. The Buddha taught a practice called metta, or loving kindness meditation. In this practice, compassion is not directed only toward others, it's also directed toward oneself. One of the phrases often used in this practice is simple and powerful: "May I be safe. May I be peaceful." For some people, repeating these words toward themselves feels unfamiliar at first. They may feel more comfortable wishing happiness for others than for themselves. But the Buddha emphasized that compassion must be universal. Excluding yourself from compassion creates imbalance. If you offer kindness to everyone except yourself, you slowly create inner division. Choosing yourself helps heal that division. You begin treating your own mind with the same patience you offer a friend. When you make mistakes, you respond with understanding rather than harsh judgment. When you feel tired, you allow yourself to rest instead of pushing endlessly. This gentleness does not weaken your character, it strengthens your clarity. When your mind is not constantly fighting itself, it becomes more capable of understanding others. You listen more fully. You react less impulsively. You approach conflicts with calm rather than defensiveness. This is the quiet transformation that happens when self-respect and compassion work together. Your kindness becomes stable instead of fragile. You no longer help others out of fear of rejection. You help because it feels true to your values. And when something is beyond your capacity, you can say no without hostility. This is an important part of Buddhist wisdom. Compassion does not mean saying yes to everything. Sometimes the most compassionate action is honesty. Sometimes it is allowing others to face their own lessons. Sometimes it is stepping back so that both people can grow. When you begin choosing yourself with awareness, your relationships also begin to reflect this balance. You give freely, but you no longer feel obligated to give beyond your limits. You care deeply, but you do not lose yourself in the process. This balance is what the Buddha described as the middle way. Not self-denial, not self-indulgence, but a life guided by wisdom and care. In this way, choosing yourself becomes part of your spiritual path. Each decision becomes an opportunity to ask a simple question. Is this action coming from fear or from clarity? Fear often pushes us to please others at our own expense. Clarity allows us to act with kindness while still honoring our own well-being. When you live from clarity, your presence becomes peaceful. People feel safe around you because your actions are sincere. You are no longer trying to control how others perceive you. You are simply living in alignment with what you know to be true. And something beautiful happens when you live this way. Your life becomes lighter. Not because problems disappear, but because your mind is no longer burdened by constant inner conflict. You move through the world with quiet confidence. You understand that caring for yourself is not a betrayal of others. It is an act of wisdom, and from that wisdom, compassion flows naturally. Not forced, not performative, but steady and genuine. Just like a lamp that has been carefully tended, your presence begins to offer warmth and clarity to the people around you. And all of it began with a simple but powerful decision. The decision to finally choose yourself. Choosing yourself is not a sudden transformation. It is a quiet return, moment by moment, decision by decision, back to the center of your own life. Buddhist wisdom reminds us that peace begins within awareness. When you listen to yourself with honesty and compassion, your life begins to align naturally with what truly matters. You become calmer, clearer, and more present in every relationship and experience. So as you move forward, remember this gentle truth. Caring for your own mind is not selfish. It is the foundation of a peaceful life. And from that peace, your kindness toward the world can grow naturally and deeply.